know who could help us now? The publisher of Hogs Illustrated.
Oh, Clay Henry?
Clay Henry can help us with gift buying.
I'll coach you on that.
Clay, are you good at gift buying? Because I suck at this, man.
Well, I think it has to be a personal touch. You can go get anything you want, and if you add a personal touch to it, it works. And a note, a letter, a poem, something that shows effort on your part that you can just melt them with it.
Is it fair to say that in my time, like I feel like I'm good at the gift buying thing, and I know when I buy gifts for women, if it's shiny and it has that glimmer in it, that wins every time. Is that a fair?
Pretty and frilly always.
Pretty and frilly, yes.
Well, but kind of the point where that doesn't work anymore. Like it's like I can like something to go with the kid, like a Le Creuset, big pot. But then I write a note in there about her cooking and put it in the pot, and it's a gift. When she opens it, it just it's a nice gift, but also you got to have that touch.
You know what? That's a great idea there too. And guys, take note. Guys back in the studio, the Matt Smackdown and Matty T. This is how you have a successful marriage, not the other way around. Where my ex-wife got me an electric toothbrush for a birthday party, a birthday present, or something. You want to talk about a personal touch, Clay? That was her personal way of telling me that my breath didn't smell very good.
Well, but she could have flipped that around, saying that you have the most beautiful smile and you sparkle, and this is
good point.
Yeah,
or
so
that I
you
drink
can
too much
do
coffee and needed a little help to whiten the whiten
well,
the teeth.
No. It is. You have to have the Sam Pittman touch, and Sam is one of those guys that even while he's doing a critique, he's encouraging you. And it's like, I went out and watched a practice, and there was a guy that he might as well have been blocking against a pillow or something. I don't know. And he was like, I'm going to encourage you, and if you don't hit the guy the next time, I'm going to encourage you to go to the showers. And it was almost kind of funny, but the guy got it, and then the next time he loaded up and hit the guy. So, but you have to build confidence, and you have to encourage, and it works so much better than the other way. And, where you tear somebody down and you think, I watched Petrino coach, and I've watched Frank Broyles coach, believe it or not, I'm that old. And there's ways to do it that's successful on both ways. You can belittle somebody and crush them to the point that they perform, but it really works a lot faster the other way.
I love how you put it, that you got to have the personal touch with the gifts. That's exactly, I think, when you get to the heart of why people connect with Sam Pittman so well. It's that it's not just a personal touch, but there's honesty to it as well. I want to ask you, what do you think? Does Arkansas lose anything with Sam Pittman not on the sideline and at home?
Yeah, I think you do. I think there is some emotion that will spill out because he's not there, that you wouldn't get that. But there can be instantaneous things that happen on the sideline where that only the head coach really has that. And he is a really good head coach, much better than probably any of us suspected or knew, just because we didn't have anything to base that off of, nothing to go on. And I'm writing something which is my keys to victory thing, and that he told us, or at least he told me, that he thought he would be a much better head coach than he would be an offensive coordinator. And he's not a play caller, but he thought he could do things that would impact as a head coach. And it comes down to one simple word, and it's called leadership. And so you're subtracting some leadership there. Now, you've got it in Barry Odom and Kendall Briles and Scott Fountain and those guys, because they've been led and empowered to do certain things with this team. It probably it'll sail along for a little while, but you need that guy, to hold it all together. Now, the other part of it is that there are things that a head coach can do that help the coordinator. He's so involved in calling the next play and the next this that he may not notice something in a stunt or something. It's like, hey, you might think about this. And so you missed that one veteran eye on the sideline. And, I think Barry's been in the press box, and I assume he'll have to come out. I don't know. I mean, if he's the head coach, can he do that from the press box? And I haven't heard that explained yet, how that's going to work.
Got Clay Henry here with us on halftime. That was going to be one of the things I was going to ask you, like how the coaching staff is going to adjust with Barry Odom possibly coming his way down here or staying up in the top, just because when you see Sam Pittman hadn't really, like, as far as making play calls, he's just more there from a leadership perspective. So that's one of the questions I was going to ask you there. I was wanting to ask you this too, because I know anytime us three, when we get together and chit chat, we always bring it back to the offensive defensive line conversation, because you win and lose ball games there. You saw the Arkansas line get pretty much dominated on the defensive side of the ball by the A&M offensive line. You saw it for about maybe the first half of the Tennessee game, and then Arkansas completely flip-flopped that in the second half. In your mind, where does Florida rank amongst, like, these past couple games that Arkansas's played as far as Florida's strength on the offensive defensive line?
They're different. They're not as massive. They're good. I mean, it's a very good offensive line. I would say, it's an upper echelon offensive line. But where Florida is really good is that Trask and his receivers are so good and so efficient and so quick in their decision-making that they don't put a lot of pressure on that offensive line. They give up more sacks. There's more lost yardage plays. But on the flip side, these guys are like the LSU offense last year, that they move the ball in such big chunk plays and have so many weapons. On this offense, there's 7, 8, 9 guys that are NFL type players, and then they've got some receivers that we haven't seen yet that everyone talks about as being elite. They just hadn't gotten on the field because of Tony and Pitts, and then the running backs, they're getting a lot of touches too, because they throw 2 wheel routes a game, and because those receivers are clearing things out. If you're going to double cover, the tight ends, and it's not just Pitts, they've got their backup tight end's really good too. So, yeah, the offensive line is really good. It may not be across the board is big and massive as, say, Tennessee was almost so big to the point that they were cumbersome, that they didn't get outside much. They had to mash you inside. But, yeah, good question. And it's a good offensive line, but what they do really, and I've heard Sam talk about this forever, is like quarterbacks holding the ball too long. Trask does not hold the ball.
Yeah, that's why they never give up any sacks. It's a really efficient offense, and that's something I want to get into the break. And be surprised if something like that happens Saturday at the Swamp, Florida Field, Ben Hill Griffith Stadium. They've got like 4 different names for the football field at the University of Florida. And
Steve Spurrier Field.
Steve Spurrier Field, that's exactly right. Clay Henry still joining us here for this last hour. I've run the steps at Florida Field. In fact, I hurt my knee because it's so damn steep on the way up. To be honest here, Clay, I mean, I don't really think that the Swamp is that special of a place when you look at just how nice of a building that it is. You can compare it to Jordan Hare or Bryant Denny, or I think even Davis Wade Stadium. I wouldn't put it up there with them, but the atmosphere there is almost second to none, and they're not going to have anything like that this weekend. Longest road trip for Arkansas as well this year, so... And walking into a hornet's nest of a team that just is efficient. I think if you were to use one word to describe the Florida offense, don't you think efficient is the right word?
Yeah, juggernaut's another one.
Yeah, that would work. That would work for a team that's averaging 42 points a game.
Yeah, that stadium. Yeah, when you got the ball, you want to take your time. You don't want to give it back to them too quickly. But that stadium, what it is it's kind of a, it's got an upper deck, but it's not that noticeable an upper deck. But what it does is all the seats are really close on top of you. And then what what I've always thought was the magic of the place was that when you play there, it is intensely humid, and it is just stifling. And if you're not in that environment, or I would say atmospheric conditions, on a routine basis, it will just sap you. You would just be drained. And Arkansas really catches a break. Now, it's going to be humid. You've got a tropical storm rolling through there, but at game time, it's going to be 75 degrees. So it isn't going to be that intense humidity. An 88-degree day there in sunshine can just suck it, the moisture right out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No kidding.
And you can say, oh, it's really humid and it's going to be taxing, and you think, well, yeah, right. And then you go play in it, and you think after a quarter you're just spent. And I've seen that happen to Arkansas teams there. Won't be the problem this trip.
Right, not this time around. Let's see which direction to go with this in here. Let's go with the Felipe Franks angle. I've got a cousin who grew up in Gainesville, huge Gators fan. We were texting about the game yesterday, and he referred to Felipe Franks as Franks and Beans, and I think he did that a little bit jokingly and a little bit in not necessarily a nasty way, but that sort of to me like delivers the perception of Felipe Franks to Florida fans. And it's a much different perception than what Arkansas fans have of Franks after this first half of the season.
Yeah, so what you have to kind of recognize with Franks in Florida is the difference in weapons, in complementary parts that Trask has compared to what Franks had. Now, remember, Franks was there during the transition between McElwain and Mullen, and they were depleted during that time, and they weren't winning. And then they've built up their arsenal, and Felipe didn't really get to benefit from that. So when you have a quarterback that their offensive line is undermanned and you don't have receivers, you go back to Arkansas the last 2 years, the quarterbacks just didn't have a chance. And they were blamed for everything, and it's like, there anybody open? And when there is, it might have been the third option, and you saw it, and the quarterback hadn't got there yet. All at once, he's overcome with the rush, and you think, well, if he would have just thrown it to that guy, well, that wasn't the number one option, and he didn't get there before he got sacked. So, I think Florida's fans, their perception of what Franks was or is, and you also have to remember now he's a senior. He's been through a lot more. He sees things quicker. Well, I tell you what, he might break their heart Saturday, and he's going to have to get some help from the defense and special teams. But this is not a game that is just going to be a rollover, in my opinion. I look at that 17.5 point spread, in the betting line, and that is a little bit much. And now you go in there and you throw a pick six, and all once Florida gets rolling, it's different. But he hadn't thrown many, interceptable balls. Now he's been careless with the football running a couple of times, and that's what he has to be careful for.
Clay, I think when you look at this ballgame, and this team, it seems like they've always played with a chip on their shoulder. They always have the motivation factor, and they don't quit for anything. Then you add in all the news of this week with Sam Pittman not being there, Felipe Franks returning to Florida, Barry Odom getting his shot at being the interim head coach. It just seems like Arkansas, at this point, in my opinion, it seems like they're playing with house money this week. And I expect a laser-focused Felipe Franks, and I'm just kind of curious from your standpoint, and I think you'll agree with me, Arkansas is going to be coming out. They're going to be focused and guns blazing, ready to rock and roll this Saturday, I think.
Yeah, that's one way that could happen. There isn't any doubt. And you just have to remember Florida's really good.
Absolutely.
And the other part that we just don't know is if Sam's got COVID, when does the other shoe fall? I mean, it's like it's not something that just sticks with one person. And it is just, I'm sure they're just going through each of these COVID tests and, like what's next? And I mean, they didn't have Dalton Wagner last week. I'm sorry, they didn't have Noah Gatlin. Dalton Wagner played, and he did pretty well. But there's a reason why Gatlin's the starter on most games and Wagner's not. So you just don't know where they're going to get hit by COVID, and it could be a test that comes back Friday morning. And it's that can. We just don't know what's going to happen until we watch the game unfold. And every week, guys, I get my binoculars out and I go through and I take the depth chart. I don't, some of the guys do the complete roster. I just try to do like 22 guys on offense, 22 guys on defense, and leave it at that. And, it's all the quarterbacks here, all the offense starting off, you just go through the starting list. Until I see that, you really don't know what you're dealing with as far as how many weapons you've got and can you play with Florida. And they're doing the same thing. That's not just Arkansas. It's just such a weird time. I mean, there's not many games this week. There's not. Yeah. They keep postponing them, and I assume we're far enough along that we're not going to, get hit with the postponement. But it's like, hey, I have not made any plane reservations this year. I've driven to all the games because I know that it could be Friday morning, and I'm got my truck gassed up and I'm ready to go and my bag's packed and there's no game. I mean, it's just we just don't know, and it's we may be all watching the Masters, Saturday and Sunday. No football.
Real quick, you bring up the Masters. Who's the favorite this weekend in your mind in the Masters?
Oh, it's DeChambeau. I mean, it's the advantage that he has now on that course and everybody says it's because of his length. I think it's that, but I think he's as good a putter. He's gone with that arm lock putting style, and he makes everything. And he's the best putter in the game right now from 10 to 20 feet. That 15-footer, he makes more than anybody else, and he's figured that out. And they can change the length of the club, the balls, or whatever, but putting is the game at Augusta National. It always has been.
Clay, we're up against the break here. It is a 1,000-mile drive to Gainesville, so you might want to get started now.
I'm going to spend the night with my brother Friday night in Tuscaloosa. So
okay,
it's like everything I do in segments. Don't try to do it all at once.
Well, be safe.
Say hi to Dreamland for us. That's Clay Henry
we'll
from
do
Hogs
that.
Illustrated.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Right.
Bring some back, please.
Thanks.